All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Sunday with T McBee as we get ready for a weather-filled slate. We've already lost the Atlanta, New York Mets game. We've got 3 other games standing by to be potentially canceled. Let me look out the window right now. Not pouring in the DC metro area, but it's not great. What's going on, Terry? Is it dry? It's not so dry in New York, is it?
No, not so dry here. It's been a rainy weekend. Had the dog out earlier. It's not actively raining right now here in Jersey City, but as you just said, they already scrapped the Braves Mets game here. Total mess of a slate. We've got 8 games on the board, still like 4 with weather concerns. There's a couple that are like rain's going to be blowing through. There's a lot of wind. It's cold in addition to the games that are potentially going to get postponed here. So total mess of a slate. It's going to be a fun one. Going to be a weird one, I think. Kind of a mess already in terms of pitching, especially if we're taking Strider off the top of the board here. So buckle up, gang. Going to be a fun one. Happy to be here.
It's going to be a quick show as well, because we do have the NBA Live Before Lock coming up promptly at noon. We're not going to focus. Yeah, we're not going to focus.
Started at 10.
Yeah, we're not going to focus quite as much on the tools, because we know those are just going to dramatically change the second we get additional weather news. We'll use them as a generality, but it's hard to be asking us questions about who's the top stack and who's this. The answer is whichever games play. Those are going to be the first ones we look at. But today we are sponsored by SoRare. So I want to remind you all that SoRare is one of the places you can get a bonus deal, or we are one of the places you can get a bonus deal with SoRare. If you go into the link below us here in the YouTube description, you can get an opportunity to buy 5 cards and then get a special card free. We're also running a fair amount of content for NBA is winding down, but we've got MLB SoRare content as well. That is some fun shows. Essentially, you are playing your NFT trading cards in contests. Now, there's a couple tweaks on this one. They do, it's basically 3-day rolling schedules, usually going on starting Friday for the weekend series, and then starting again on Monday for the other series. And you got all sorts of rules and articles and analytical tricks available here on the Stokastic site, breaking it all down. But it's another fun way to, 1, utilize your knowledge, and 2, get in on an emerging market where there aren't as many apex predators. And that's something you always want to kind of look at here in the DFS world, where DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo are pretty well overrun by those apex predators. But let's jump in here today, Terry. We've got some fun. We're going to talk about Cleveland and Boston, one of the games that is standing by for weather issues. We do have Chris Sale on the mound for Boston, fellow lefty Logan Allen on the bump for the Guardians. How are you feeling confidence-wise about at least this game starting and getting a few innings in for the pitchers? And should Chris Sale retire now?
Yeah, Sale's been kind of a mess, kind of all over the place. I'm just looking to see if there's any updates from the favorite DFS weathermen out there. At the same time, I was pulling up my little traffic cams and weather cams and everything, and it's looking pretty wet in the Boston area right now. I'm not really loving it, but it does look like the latest update is it seems like there's going to be a bit of a dry start with rain moving in later on. So maybe these are older images. I'm not exactly sure. I think these are live cams, but it's not looking great right now, and it's supposed to get worse. So I don't love the idea of this one playing full cleanly, which is kind of a ding to the starting pitchers, who already were kind of dinged in that Sale's been crazily unpredictable. He's racking up strikeouts at a 27.3% clip so far this season, but he's walking hitters at a 9.1% rate. He's got an 8.22 ERA over his 23 innings and 5 starts. But at the same time, he's got a 3.90 xFIP. That's not bad. He's inducing a 12.3% swinging strike rate, but he's giving up a 4.55% home run rate with 11.9% barrels, 43.3% hard hit, almost 91 miles an hour of average exit velo. So Sale's a mess. He's at a cheap price, but I don't like throwing pitchers at this Guardians team. They're very, very difficult to strike out. They're good at sequencing. They're good at running. They don't hit for a ton of power, but they've got a couple decent power bats in that lineup. And then just like a mess of like slap hitting speedy types. So I don't love throwing pitchers at them anyway. And especially not pitchers that are a mess in weird weather conditions where if we get like a stop and start, Sale is not coming back into this game after a long rest. Zero chance there. Similar story with Logan Allen. I don't think they're going to start and stop the kid. I really like this kid. I was talking to you before the show. He was a big fab pickup for me today. I missed out on his teammate. I put the biggest fab bid that I've put all season in on his teammate, Tanner Bybee, and somebody beat me on that, what I thought was going to be an easily winning bid. But I really like Logan Allen almost as much. 34.8% strikeout rate, represents 8 strikeouts in his season debut over 6 innings, 1 start. High end kid. 3 of his breaking pitches were way above average by stuff plus. His fastball is a little bit behind the curve in terms of velocity, but people really rave about the angle that it comes from, and it's really deceptive. So it plays up above the level of like what you see for his velocity numbers. So he's got 4 really good pitches. Should be a very, very good starter on the as a lefty. We'll see if they keep him up, but I really like the kid. I think it's an interesting spot at 6,700 if we had good weather or if the weather clears in the next hour and a half. So you can play some Logan Allen for the discount there. I just really worry if the game starts and stops.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense here for this one. So we're not going to belabor at that point because we do have some games that we do want to get into here. And again, we are up against the clock. Anything else from this one?
I wouldn't mind some of those Guardians bats for cheap if I thought this game was going to go. They're very cheap on the FanDuel slate for their talent up and down. No Zunino in the back end of the lineup. Those kind of a ding to the power upside. Final third is kind of weak there. So top 6 from the Guardians, but small doses on both sites. Similar story with the Red Sox. Like you can go to the top 5 there. Verdugo, Turner. I don't actually like Ref Snyder, but Verdugo, Turner, Devers, and Yoshida maybe. Back end of that lineup, the bottom end of that is just journeyman types. Rob Ref Snyder is hitting 3rd for this team regularly against left-handed pitching. He does have good splits the last few years against lefties. I will give him that, but this is a career journeyman player. He's like 32. This is not like a young kid who's like a guy who's exceptionally good for power against lefties or anything like that. Like he just has a good hit tool against left-handed pitching. So the Rob Refsnyder thing is way overblown in my opinion. He is miscast as a 3-hitter. He's a usable part because he's cheap if you're going to Red Sox stacks, but it's not a great spot anyway. He's not a good hitter. So I don't love it in terms of him.
All right, let's move on to our next one. This is another game that's at risk. It is Pittsburgh at Washington. We did see the doubleheader yesterday. I think the Nationals gave up something like 22 runs in those 2 games. Today, it is the bringer of home runs, Josiah Gray, on the mound. Did he learn how to pitch? Did he get lucky? I'm hoping he's kind of learned how to pitch as I'm wearing my Nationals shirt today. But this is weather issue where I don't think they're going to get this one in. Even if they wait around most of the day, it's still rain throughout the day for this. So it's one where this is going to lock at the early time, and you could be left just sitting there. Whereas yesterday we lucked out with Atlanta and New York. That was the 4:00 game on yesterday's slate. So we were able to, put Strider in and roll with some of the hitters there and then fix things once they finally called that around 2:00. So we won't have that luxury. That all said, you've got, who is it? Johan Oviedo and Josiah Gray here. Intriguing pitchers, at least. Not good. Potentially could get better. What are you thinking here of the pitchers? What do you think of the weather?
Yeah, I actually kind of like Oviedo. I also think this game eventually just postpones. I don't think this one plays. The Nationals are really weird with weather situations already anyway, and it just doesn't look like a good spot. That said, if this one goes, to your point, Josie Gray has been a pitcher that we've targeted aggressively for home run upside, 6.19% home run rate 2 years ago, 5.86 last year, but has made some strides this year. It seemed like he stopped throwing his meaty fastball as much. So he's cut his fastball usage, changes pitch mix a little bit. I haven't looked at it in the last 2 starts in terms of the specifics of it, but that's what he was essentially leaning toward. And it's had a bit of a limiting effect on the home run upside so far. But like, it's been kind of like we've gone a couple rounds, like he's knocked us down, we've knocked him down a few times. So we'll see where this lands. I'm not totally convinced yet. It's still coming through in big ways in my model in terms of the Pirates upside. There are a bunch of hitters over the magic number in my home run model. So if this one got dry in a hurry and seemed like it was going to play, I'd be all over guys like Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, Carlos Santana, Jack Suwinski, Connor Joe, Rodolfo Castro. In smaller doses, maybe some G1 Bay. Don't really need Austin Hedges. And then Brian Hayes in the leadoff spot has really struggled in his major league career. There's the idea of talent with Brian Hayes. It's a great spot in that lineup if you're going to them, especially at 2,900 on FanDuel. He just hasn't done much for us. So he's there. He does have a 46.7% hard hit rate and only strikes out 11.3% of the time this year in 115 plate appearances. So maybe that's something to hang your hat on if you're going to Brian Hayes shares. Don't like the Nationals at all. Probably don't trust Gray enough to play him even at price. I get it if you want to take shares, and he actually projects decently for me because he's a decent strikeout pitcher, despite all his warts in terms of the home run upside. But again, game that I expect to at best start and stop, most likely postpone. I just don't like throwing pitchers into that situation. So it would be the same story with Oviedo, who I actually do like. He would be interesting for low ownership at a big price on FanDuel and at a discount for probably popularity on DK if this game wasn't going to rain out.
All right. I do want to answer the one question. Yes, the Nationals do have a pretty good drainage system. We get tons of humidity storms here in the DC metro area, so it just is a deluge. You get about what Seattle gets in a day or two, you get in an hour or two here, the sheer volume, but they actually do have a decent drainage system, so I'm not as worried about the conditions of the field. Remember, this stadium was put into play 2006, I want to say, so it's relatively new and up to date. So that's just one more concern we can get out.
But that's more like a standing water after a storm kind of a concern rather than a actively pouring rain all day concern, which is kind of going to be the problem here.
All right, you ready for our next game here?
Yeah.
Marco Gonzalez, Chris Bassett. This one will be, even though there's rain in the area of Toronto, the greater Toronto metropolitan area, this is, of course, a retractable roof stadium. It's funny how many people still miss that, Terry. That.
I wonder how many people that impacts, because like one of the major fantasy sites, at least, still treats it with like they've got their red warning label on it today. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. It's like, guys, maybe we make an adjustment there, but they also can't figure out how to get the T onto the end of Christian Bethancourt's name in the last 2.5 years. So, we've got some ongoing issues with those guys, but I like this spot. I think it's an interesting game. Are you getting to shares of the hitting in this game? Because I'm curious how you're seeing this one with these two pitchers on the mound.
Why, yes. I have decided that we want to look at the Toronto bats. So here are my notes, and this is just I'm quickly going to read this. It's from the free Spotlight Pitchers and Top Stacks article that is available every day on the Stokastic homepage, but I think it's worthwhile. I'm also a Mariners fan, so I say, it's sad that Robbie Ray is out for the rest of the season after needing season-ending surgery on his pitching arm. That means Marco Gonzalez, who was a luxury option towards the back of the rotation, now has to deliver. Unfortunately, the former St. Louis Cardinals on the wrong side of 30, and he's seen a dramatic increase in home runs, all the way up to 1.6 per nine over his last 61 starts. Now, that's a bit of a challenge. He's in his crafty lefty phase of his career. He's gone away from his fastball over the last 2 years, but he's throwing his changeup almost 1/3 of the time. So when hitters know what's coming and it's a pitch they like, they just wait for it to be in the zone they're expecting it to be in, and they can knock the heck out of the ball. Now, changeups don't usually end up in a lot of home runs, but those are screaming line drives and gappers. So that is fine as well. So I think we look to the standard set of righties that are there in the lineup: Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Chapman. Whit Merrifield got a boost all the way up to the 5 spot. That's a promotion. He had been usually batting 7th or 8th. And then you also have Alejandro Kirk, who is in the 6th spot. So that's a nice position to be in here. So for me, I really, really, really like the Blue Jays bats. I don't know what to do with Chris Bassett. He had that horrible couple outings at the beginning of the season, but he's been pretty steady and kind of back to his career track record over the last few starts. Do you agree on attacking Marco Gonzalez and lead us through Chris Bassett?
Yeah, I actually like both of those spots today. I think it's definitely interesting spot going to the Blue Jays. They were one of the leading teams in my power index today. Top half of the lineup is expensive, but super duper productive. Tons and tons of power up there, and that's what George Springer not even hitting yet, and actually kind of falling in as a bit of a discount for it. Looking at Springer, he's still got a 10.6% barrel rate to hang our hat on. We know that this is a star caliber player. 25 home runs, 14 stolen bases last year, 22 home runs the year before in a limited, 342 plate appearances. He'll come around. So I'm just going to keep going back to the well with Springer. You put him together with Bo Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero, Matt Chapman. It's an embarrassment of riches there. Whit Merrifield in the 5 spot is cheap and semi-interesting. He's a decent enough correlation play. 129 WRC plus for the season, gets on base at a decent clip. So he's fine to play along with those guys. Kirk is a good catcher bat there. Dalton Varsho dropping down to the 7 spot is a bit of a ding in terms of the plate appearance upside. You still like his bat, 27 home runs and a 207 ISO last year. Struggling this year, 2 home runs, a 106 ISO in 108 plate appearances. The contact profile is like just completely gone right now. His barrel rate cut in half at 5.9%, only 29.4% hard hits, but I still like getting the Varsho there. Jansen, Espinal, usable parts down toward the bottom of the lineup. So we're targeting the idea of all the home run upside, all the hard hit that we've had available with this pitcher in the past. He's actually been good at limiting hard hits. I do want to call that out. Marco Gonzalez, 28.6% hard hit and only a 3.2% barrel rate, 2.3% home run rate so far this year. What tends to happen to him is that guys will get a barrel on a ball, and he's typically a fly ball pitcher, and sometimes the launch angle gets out of control and he gets dinged for home run upside. So that's always been the knock on him. So you can always go to right-handed bats against him for power, which we like doing there. Bassett has been giving us reliably like 6 innings of depth. He pitched into I think the 7th inning a couple times here. So I'm pulling up his game log again. I wrote about it earlier this morning, but yeah, 6 and a third each of the last 2 starts, 4 strikeouts, 5 strikeouts, has allowed 2 earned runs in all of his starts, 2 or fewer earned runs in all of his starts, except that disastrous first one when he allowed 9 earned runs in 3 1/3 innings. He gave up 4 home runs in that game. He gave up 1 home run in the next game to the Angels. He's given up none in the next 3 games. Bit of an issue with the walks. Strikeout upside hasn't really been there, but this is a guy we've seen perform. 22.4% strikeout rate last year, 25% the year before, and he's always reliably pitching deep into the ball game. So he gives you a really good shot at the win and at the quality start, especially if we're chasing Blue Jays bats with the idea that they're going to pound Gonzalez. Chase the win as well. We think the Blue Jays are going to win this game. Fine. Book some cheap Bassett shares, 8,400, 8,800. I like Chris Bassett here, particularly if he goes a little bit under the radar.
All right. Anything else you want to call out from this one? Sorry, I was trying to let my mom know to call during a show here. So I was texting and not listening. And
sorry, I didn't have the old camera up here. I was actually jumping over to the Stokastic site to see if we have ownership. I didn't put up ownership in my model here yet, so I wanted to see what's Bassett's ownership like. Do we have it up yet?
I have not pulled that up either because it wasn't there when I wrote my article in the wee hours of the morning, but we can take a peek here.
Yeah, I don't typically put it in until I'm done with all my stuff there. So let me jump in here. And
yeah, because the one thing that's always fun on Sunday is you're just getting lineup after lineup after lineup, and it's like we should have most of them with so here's public service announcement. Don't forget, Peacock games have started again. There's a 12:05 game today between Chicago and Miami. So if you are playing season-long leagues, make sure to get those players into your lineup. And if you're doing any pickups, that is going to be the lock time for the regular MLB slate. It looks like we have Bassett on DK is 16% of being a top 2 pitcher, and that's right about where he is coming in for popularity. And we have taken out the Atlanta game, so it is accounting for that. You're on mute.
Yep. Sorry about that.
We'll take that out in post-production.
Had to tell Joker to go lie down. He was being a bit of a punk over here. But yeah, 16.9% on DK at 8,400 and 12.4% on FanDuel for 8,800. I like that spot for Bassett. It's not a great matchup. The Mariners are very, very good. I would take some head shares of Mariners bats, and they're all owned in single digits on both sites. So get to some cheap Mariners at low ownership. Julio Rodriguez, Ty France, Jared Kelenic. Kelenic, by the way, just absolutely has arrived finally. 2 horrible seasons when he first got called up here, but he was always great for the contact profile, was still barreling the ball, hitting it hard, just wasn't delivering in terms of what we wanted from him. Now he is completely doing so. So absolutely gets to Kelnick. Eugenio Suarez, really weird season for him. No power, but he's kind of hitting the ball for average and getting on base and stuff, which is not him. I expect it to turn around, still striking out 30% of the time. We'll see the power arrive. Teoscar, Cal Raleigh, even Crawford, Pollock, and Wong at the bottom of this lineup. You kind of like those veteran parts as like swappable parts, guys who can create runs, can get on the board for home run power, steal a base for you. So 1 through 9, you can play these Mariners in a lot of different combinations depending on how that lineup comes out.
All right. They were asking in chat, is there a way that Marco Gonzalez could have a solid game and hand this over to the Mariners bullpen? Of course, it's baseball.
Sure.
That can happen at any time. We saw, Chris Flexen get scratched yesterday. Random guy who I can't even remember his name at this point came up and what did he allowed? I'm going off memory, 1 run in 6 innings or something like that, barely any strikeouts. And the Mariners lost another heartbreaker there. But in any event, looking at their bullpen, nobody's gone 2 days in a row aside from Matt Brash and Trevor Gott. So those are, I wouldn't expect to see them, but Seawold's only pitched yesterday. Prior to that, he hadn't pitched since Tuesday. And then Justin Tapa probably will be their later inning reliever. He pitched yesterday, but also was off since Wednesday. So they should have most of their arms ready.
Yeah, really good bullpen. Brash is a good reliever for fantasy purposes if you're doing a all relief approach because he slots in a starting pitcher.
Oh, interesting.
I added him to a lot of teams in the last week or so. But yeah, going back to that question, just if we just look at Marco Gonzalez's results for this year, right, which I don't like doing and just looking at game by game and just this year's small sample. But if you look at that, you can find compelling reasons and reasons to believe that he might get through that. Just 2 starts ago against Milwaukee, only gave up 2, struck out 9. That's a great performance, especially at price. He could go out and do that. It's unlikely against this team. They're definitely a better lineup loaded with better right-handed bats than the Brewers are. Last game against the Phillies, he only struck out 2, but he only walked 1. He gave up a home run, but that was the only earned run he gave up. Covered 5 innings. I don't know if they won or lost that game, but if he gives you 5 clean innings, a couple of strikeouts, and books you the win, you could do worse. He's just not likely to do it. He's not my favorite guy. I think there's better spots on the board.
All right, let's continue moving along. I want to remind everybody to hit that like button. It is a Sunday, and it is always a fun day when we are on. I see we have 500 people watching. Let's get up to at least 125 likes. So when I return my mom's call, I won't be completely embarrassed. And she does watch the playback of these shows because she's sad that I live clear across the country and she doesn't get to see me all that often. So she will be tuning in. So hello, Mama Mac. Thank you for giving me a call.
Hi, Mama Mac. Everybody say hi to her in chat. Be nice.
Yes, be very, very nice. Be very, very nice to her today. Special day for her as well. But we've got, in addition to hitting that like button, I want to tell you about the other fun we have going on the YouTube channels. We just hit 88,000 subscribers so on the Stokastic YouTube channel, but we also have the Odds Shopper YouTube channel. And over there, every weekday at 4 o'clock, you can get the Odds Shop. You're going to get Lofty, Ben, Greg, Lindy, and Aton, all the guys talking down betting, sports wagering, how to use the different Stokastic tools, how to use the Odd Shopper tools, and how to take advantage of various boosters and promos and sign-up bonuses on the different sports wagering sites. It's a lot of fun, and a lot of that is applicable to if you don't have sports wagering. They talk a lot about prize picks and no house advantage, etc. And you can utilize this information on those sites as well. You just can't do the game totals, but you can do any of the player props there. So that's a lot of fun. You guys want to check that out. Starts again at 4 o'clock Monday through Friday over there on the Odd Shopper YouTube channel. Our next game here.
By the way, the Mariners should just call up Bryce Miller to fill that spot. That's your guy to fill that Robbie Ray spot. I don't think Marco Gonzalez is gonna get the job done for you in the long term. Bryce Miller, I like a lot though. Prospect I'm watching.
I don't know if they're going to. They don't want to start some service clocks. They're in a really awkward position right now, having ended their playoff drought. But this year, if you look at their lineup, it's not particularly daunting. They're all above average. And collectively, they're above average, but there's no, now without Robbie Ray, there's no stopper. You got 3 good pitchers, but they're not, they're very young, and they've got a good lineup, but there's nobody terrifying in there. You got Julio Rodriguez, who is going to need to learn, how to harness his talent. And the other thing about Jared Kelenic, he only signed a 1-year deal, so $700 and whatever $1,000. Right? Yeah, so they have him for arbitration, but yeah, they didn't sign him to a contract because he was just so bad.
Okay, all right, but they do have his arbitration.
They do have his arbitration.
Okay, yeah. So they're just gonna have to give him a big raise. But
yes.
That's all right. They'll probably. I mean, if they're smart, they'll probably sign him to an extension. But yeah, somebody had a pretty apt tweet the other day that said something to the effect of, a couple years ago I was worried about this Mariners team getting to the point where they're competitive, but they've already decided this is all we're going to invest in this team. And I'm worried that this is that point. It's like, yeah, I can kind of see that, but I do really like that lineup. Like, I think they're interesting and functional in a lot of different ways, a lot like what the Rays are. And you look at a really flawed lineup like the Yankees, which has like $250 million in salary, and Willie Calhoun hitting 5th, Oswaldo Cabrera hitting 6th, Aaron Hicks, it might as well be me out there at this point. And then it just makes it so frustrating to see the Rays, like, any given player in any given day just rolls into that lineup and just, absolutely rakes, hits 2 home runs, hits a triple, drives in 3 runs, whatever. Everybody on that goddamn team is above average for run creation this year. They're insanely good. It just makes it really frustrating, and speaks to the right way to build a ball club. Anyway, I know we're short on time.
All right, but that's okay. We'll make it up here at some point. Other games are gonna fall here to weather. But we've got the Orioles and Tigers. Yeah,
we already did the ones that get postponed.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. No circling back. We've got the Orioles and Tigers here. Kyle Bradish on the mound for Baltimore. Marginal strikeout potential for him, but he is going against the Tigers, who are the worst team in baseball this year, dating back to last year and dating back 2 years ago. Their current collection hitters of going against righties is just abysmal. They have about a 70 WRC plus, which means they are creating runs 25 or so % less efficiently or equal to the league baseline. That is horrible. Some of the better teams out there against lefties double them up. Now, lefties, we get to see a lot more extreme numbers there, but yeah, they're just not good. Spencer Turnbull on the other side, almost a mirror image of Kyle Bradish, because he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts as eminently hittable here. Are we going with the hitters, Terry? What do you got here for the batters of Birdland versus the Motor City Kitties?
I'll have some Orioles, but this is not a spot where I'm going to get over the top with Orioles bats. I've got them solidly in the mid-range today. The reason why is because teams need to sequence and create runs against Spencer Turnbull. He is very difficult for whatever reason to hit a home run against. I'll find the stat, but he's around a 1-something home run rate for his every season in his weird career, right? He didn't pitch at all last year. He had 50-something innings in 21, 50-something innings in that weird short season in 2020, and then had like reasonably bigger samples in 2019, 2018. But looking at his full home run, he's only he's allowed 21 home runs in his career to 1,271 batters faced. That's a 1.65% home run rate for his career. That's very, very good. And he's done it every single season. So it's a sustained trait. For whatever reason, it's not that he is great at avoiding premium contact. Like, he's got 5 and 6% barrel rates, which is good, but not like stellar. He's okay at keeping the ball down. It's a launch angle thing primarily, which is like really my focus when I'm looking for hitters that limit power. So what I'm trying to say is I don't like throwing bats at Spencer Turnbull, even though I don't think he's a good pitcher, unless it's a team that really, really sequences very well. The Orioles have done that fairly well this year. They've gotten on base at a very good clip. They have very good speed. So you can get there with this team today. I just think knocking their power down a little bit, and then with the struggles of a guy like Ryan Mountcastle, who hasn't walked at all this year, he's got a 3.3% walk rate and like a 240 something batting average on balls in play, which is really crushing him despite his great contact profile and his ridiculous power. So you get guys like that. So you're weaving in and out of plays like Cedric Mullins, who I like a lot, Austin Hayes, who I like a lot, Jorge Mateo, who I love, and then trying to get these power bats, and you have to get that power bat right against a guy who doesn't give up home runs. So I don't love it for the Orioles today. I'll have some. Like I said, they're lowish owned. You can get there. Mullins is kind of popular at the top of the lineup. But that's not to say that I want to roster Spencer Turnbull for any reason whatsoever, despite the salary. I am interested in Kyle Bradish. It looks like the field is there a little bit, 19% on DK at 7,000, only 5.3% at 8,500, which is a nice discount on the FanDuel slate. We've seen righty after righty just kind of dominate this Tigers team. So I'm willing to take another shot here. Bradish, like you said, limited strikeout stuff so far, 18.4% strikeout rate this year. Better last year in 117 and 2/3, 21.8% strikeout rate, a 401 xFIP. So I'll take my shots looking for that guy. And he's got some good stuff. He's like a 104 stuff plus rating for across his arsenal. So I actually like him. He's well above average in terms of how his stuff works in individual pitch sense. So take some shots with Bradish at cheap prices.
All we need to know is on DraftKings, Javier Baez at 3,300 and Riley Green at 3,500 are the only hitters in the lineup today above 2,800. That's some dynamic pricing at work for you folks.
Yeah, and they're 20% below average for Green and 44% below average for Baez, with a 0.098 ISO and a 0.047 ISO and 2 combined home runs on the season over about 200 and change plate appearances. They have not been good. There's the idea of Riley Green being a good player. He's a lefty, but last year, 418 plate appearances, 5 homers, a 109 ISO, 2% worse than average creating runs, nothing to speak of in the triple slash. Javi Baez has been bad for years. Green needs to prove it at some point that he's worth, the prospect pedigree. Spencer Torkelson, former first overall pick, that was a waste of time. He and Javi Baez might as well have robbed the bank in Detroit at this point.
They said that the other day when I was watching this. Baltimore has played them each of the last 10 days. They've run through Baltimore, and now it's in Detroit. And I had forgotten that Spencer Torkelson was the first overall draft pick. And when they said that, my jaw just hit the floor. I'm like, wait, what?
So bad.
That was just awful.
Yeah. 8 homers, 203, 285, 319, 117 ISO, 76 WRC plus last year. So far this year, 105 plate appearances, 211, 257, 316, 105 ISO, 55 WRC plus, 2 homers. Not good. It's a moderately good contact profile. Like, if we want to find something for the kid, 44.7% hard hit, 9.2% barrel rate in his batted ball events. That's okay if you can build on that, but yeah, not a lot there. Do not like the Tigers at all.
No. All right. Our next few games, we get some pitching to talk about, which is going to be fun. So we've got the Tampa Bay Rays in Chicago taking on the White Sox. There is a little bit of weather concern here, but they do have a window later today where they could get this in. So I anticipate we will get this one. You've got Drew Rasmussen on the bump for the Rays, who is grading out as a top 3 pitching option today. You've got Mike Clevinger on the other side, who is not so great. Yesterday, the Rays stuck it to T. McBee, who was talking about how amazing the offerings of Lance Lynn were going to be, with the meaty fastball and all sorts of other delicious adjectives talking about his pitch offerings. And he no-hit them into the 6th inning. And then promptly.
To be fair, that all of that did amount to saying that Lance Lynn was in a good spot, and I liked him. He was my second highest owned pitcher and second highest projected pitcher yesterday. So I actually really liked the Lance Lynn spot. The guy I got wrong yesterday was Nathan Eovaldi, who didn't project great. I think the site Stokastic had him at like 33 on FanDuel. I had him at like 28 or something like that, not counting like quality start or anything. And dude went out and pitched a complete game shutout and just had a monster performance. So kudos to Eovaldi. Kudos to whoever did the projections yesterday. It's Stokastic. You got me on that one. But I actually liked the spot for Lance Lynn yesterday. Do not like the spot for Mike Clevinger. Don't play Mike Clevinger. He's broken. 16.1% strikeout rate, 12.5% walks, 34.6% hard hit, 2.68% home run rate, but giving up a 9% barrel on a 20-degree average launch with 89.6 miles an hour of average exit velo. That's going to turn into more home runs fast, and it could happen very quickly against this Rays team. They could ruin his day really quickly. Brandon Lau might hit a home run in his first plate appearance. So I like the Rays stack. I like getting to Rays bats. That's true in basically any scenario. They're not as popular probably as they should be. 10s and 12s, a couple high ownership narcs on Lau and Erlis Arena at the top of the lineup, but everybody in this lineup except for Manny Margot in the 9 spot is well above average for creating runs on the season. Hitters 1 through 8 for this season, and average WRC plus of 156. So on the average, they are 56% better than average creating runs. So basically every player in the lineup is worth a half again, as much as anybody else in the league right now. This is a really good baseball team. Power, speed, up and down. Lau, Oros Lorena, Harold Ramirez, I love hitting third. Even before this power outburst this year, Ramirez was always a very good line drive hitter with, decent stick and creating runs. And this year he's hitting for power too. So you really like that. Josh Lowe, Isaac Paredes, Taylor Walls is not that great, but he's having a great year so far this year. So, hey, might as well ride it. Multi-position eligibility. He's cheap, low owned. Luke Raley, I know I'm talking a lot. Luke Raley on the left side, decent home run upside. Christian Bethancourt, great catcher bat. Just really, really like the Rays. And then Rasmussen is just way too low owned. I don't know what we're doing here. The White Sox are really, really bad. They have no Luis Robert after his little incident yesterday on the base path. So a further downgrade to an already dramatically underperforming lineup. Rasmussen's in a great spot. I don't care about his price. He is way too low owned in this spot.
Yeah, the interesting notes I have on Rasmussen are he's had 2 bad starts, one at Toronto and one at home against Houston, where he allowed 5 runs in each. He then held Washington, Cincinnati, and Oakland scoreless in his other 3 starts.
I expect a pitcher to give 5 runs up to the Astros and the Blue Jays, right?
It would make sense.
An average start, right? You're going to get those games.
Yeah.
Overall, 27 innings, 28.2% strikeouts, 3.18 xFIP.
Yeah, and you mentioned no Luis Robert. There's also no Yohan Moncada, no Tim Anderson. Even Hanser Alberto is better than half the guys in this lineup. You got Benintendi who's dinged up, Jose Abreu's in Houston, right? This is not the same White Sox lineup that we've seen the last couple
They're the third worst team in baseball, or they might be the worst at this point. I don't know, but as of the other day, it was them, the Athletics, and the Royals at the bottom of the league. They have just been bad. Looking at this lineup, there's a couple guys right now on small samples with WRC pluses that are above average. Like Andrew Vaughn is having a nice season in a full sample, 117 plate appearances. He's 12% above average creating runs, but he's only hit 2 homers, only a 157 ISO. Adam Hazley in the leadoff spot is kind of interesting if you're going to the White Sox. He's a former top prospect. He's like 28, 29, something like that now, like post hype type guy. But at that price, maybe he puts bat on ball. He was always like a line drive hit tool type guy. So maybe he's kind of interesting for the minimum price. So if you wanted to stack White Sox, it'd be like Hazley, Vaughn, maybe some Sheets, maybe some Eloy Jimenez, and just Manny Grandal, but it is not great. Eloy's really struggling. Grandal's been okay. Jake Berger's been a house of fire. He's having like a Brent Rooker kind of start to his season, but neither of those guys is good. Neither of them is going to succeed in the long term. Berger, probably the better of the 2, I think. But it's not good on either one of them. So no faith there. Fire away with Rasmussen shares. Just a majorly under-owned spot. Big opportunity there.
Yep, that is definitely the call out here. The other call out.
And Elvis Andrus still sucks.
Yes.
So just got to say that every time.
We don't get points for defensive plays made 10 years ago. Sadly. Here's a good deal. You guys want to get in on some free Stokastic Premium. If you have not yet signed up for BetMGM, all you got to do is go into the link in the description below us here on the YouTube page, or use promo code Platinum Sub. All you got to do is have a Stokastic account created. That's it. That's all you got to do. You don't even have to have an active subscription. But what you're going to do is you're going to sign in through that. When you're in any page on the Stokastic site, you can click one of those BetMGM buttons. It's going to tag you with our referral code. Send you over to BetMGM. You create your account, put it in your deposit. Just got to do $10. Make a $10 wager, and immediately upon settling that wager, the BetMGM will give you a promo code that will get you 30 days of all access Stokastic. Very, very cool. The other thing you get is a bet insurance on your first wager up to $1,000. So if you are a big baller with deep pockets, you put in $1,000, make $1,000 wager. If you lose said wager, you will get $1,000 in bet credits that you can use over the next week. That same is true if you wager $10 on your first bet. That is coming with bet insurance as well. That is only your first bet. But again, that is promo code Platinum Sub, or just click on the link or any button on the Stokastic or OddsShopper site. Moving on to our next game here, Terry, you've got Brady Singer. Not a bad pitcher today. It's going to be very, very cold in Minnesota. It's in the low 40s.
Yeah,
There
really.
is a brisk breeze out to right field, looking between 15 and 20 miles per hour. So that one is it'll slightly counteract each other. But cold weather, foul balls, never fun for hitters. Never fun for hitters. You've got Sonny Gray on the other side, who is. He is just one of the most maligned characters out there by the DFS world. If you look at his career ERA, he has a 3.5 ERA over 253 starts across 11 seasons. Yes, about half of that came when there was no designated hitter in the National League, but he has been pretty good otherwise. He just gets his ass kicked from time to time in spots where we think he should do well, and that's why we think, he's not great, or he's Laffy and Davis Maddock used to call him the definition of putridity or something like that back in way back in the early DFS days. But I want to remind everybody that while he has allowed just 2 runs in 29 innings this year, he's not going to keep a sub 1 ERA. That's just it's not going to happen. However, Kansas City, second worst in the league since the beginning of last season against right-handed pitching, and 83 WRC plus. So while they are still better than Detroit, they are still the second worst team in the league. And then their lineup just absolutely falls off a shelf after Salvador Perez, who's not even in the lineup today. So, there he is batting third.
Yeah,
he got bumped up to third.
No MJ.
Olivares. Yeah, I just saw that.
MJ's out.
Yeah.
I'll take some shares if I was going to Royals, which I'm not really going to be very much. But I would throw Edward Olivares, especially if he's hitting cleanup today. I would throw him into that mix. I would make him probably the cutoff point. But yeah, nothing to love about Nick Pratto, Franmil Reyes. Well, all right, maybe you can sell me some Franmil shares if I'm home run hunting against Sonny Gray. All right, fine. So we'll skip Nick Pratto 5. We'll play Franmil Reyes. We'll skip Hunter Dozier, Jackie Bradley, and Matt Duffy from the bottom of the lineup if we're going to Royals. There's your Royal stack. They're cheap. They're low owned, but Sonny Gray is a good pitcher. Like you said, you would maybe be attacking some ownership there. 32.4% owned on DK. Not something to, sneeze at there. So, maybe there's the idea of the Royals, but they just haven't gotten it done this year. They haven't. It's 4 home runs, 5 home runs, 3 home runs for Whit, Pasquantino, and Sal Perez, all below average. Whit below average, Pasquantino 29% above average, and Sal Perez now up to league average for run creation so far. So, I mean, there's your core of guys if you're going to the Royals, but it's not great. I do have a probably plan to invest in Sonny Gray. He's my highest projected pitcher now that Spencer Strider's off the board. It's a big asking price at 11.5, but like you said, there's tons of reason to have faith in Sonny Gray. It's important to remember that like those best years of his career, the big strikeout years that you mentioned in the National League, that did come in Cincinnati. So it's not like he was pitching in a good park. So he was a good pitcher then. He's a good pitcher now. 29.3% strikeout rate in 5 games this year, 29 innings. You mentioned the 0.62 ERA and no home runs allowed. Both of those will change. He's allowed a 90.2 mile an hour average exit velo, 42.3% hard hits. So that plays into the power potential if you're going to Kansas City, maybe something to look at there. He does still walk too many at 9.5%, but 29% strikeouts is great. He was striking out 24 last year. You mentioned not knowing necessarily where his ERA will come in, but it's definitely going to go up. I can tell you his xFIP is probably going to be right around where it is right now. It's 3.63 over 5 starts right now. Last year in 24 starts it was 3.66. Year before in 26 starts it was 3.66. So we're going to be right around 3.6 something mark, I think, for his xFIP for the season. He's a good pitcher, good strikeouts. There are plenty of strikeouts in that Kansas City lineup as well. You've got Vinny Pasquantino striking out just 13.8% of the time. Everybody else is striking out pretty aggressively. They're averaging like a 25% range if you ignore Pasquantino. So nice spot for Sonny Gray shares. I'll take shots against Singer with the Twins. I think he's viable for the 7,400, 7,700, but I wish he was lower owned than the mid-teens ownership on both sites. He's got upside. He's proven that he can pitch at the major league level, find some strikeouts along the way. Kind of a bumpy start to his year, allowed a ton of power, 4.31% home run rate, 94.8 miles an hour of average exit velo, 12.8% barrel rate, 60.5% hard hit against so far this year. Those are all really problematic. If he's doing that against this Twins team, the ball's going to sail. You can get to Kepler, Polanco, Correa, Buxton, Larnach, my guy Joey Gallo. Nick Gordon, Willie Castro, Christian Vasquez down the bottom of the lineup. You can take or leave, but that top 7 or top 6 there is pretty strong. Love Gallo. The prices come up a little bit. Like Byron Buxton isn't 2,800 on FanDuel anymore. He's 3,300 now, which is still way too cheap. 5,400. He should be 6,000, 4,000 every slate. So you're still getting a discount, Buxton. I like the Twins side of that better than I like the Singer side, but Singer projects well for me. So that's a both sides for me.
Right, that makes sense. We've got 2 to go. One thing I do want to call it, since we are sponsored by SoRare, if you have not seen the Vinny Pasquantino SoRare commercial, watch it a couple times. It's pretty funny. I think it must have been popping up when I was watching MLB TV. It talks about him being Pasquatch, the play on Sasquatch, I think is his name. He's a pretty funny guy. Talks about what he's trying to improve on and some different stuff and why you should pick him. It's so rare. So
I want to like this Royals team. I want to enjoy. So that's a good reason too. I mean, I've got Sal Perez for the Tino League and everything. So I've got a vested interest there. And I just think I think they're an interesting team. I think if they actually start putting bat on ball, I think this is a good lineup that will be frisky and fun to roster for DFS. They're just not getting it done at all, at least like the top 5-6 hitters. So yeah, it's just been weird, but that's fun. I'll check that out.
All right. You ready for a little on this day in history, Terry?
Yes, I am. Always. What do you got?
All right. What happened on this day in history in 1945?
1945. A lot of women were probably giving birth to the generation ahead of us that's on their way out.
Not quite. No? That was still springtime. There was a certain someone who ate a lead bullet that day. Okay. But that was when
not quite there yet.
That was when the most evil person in the world ended his day. What happened in 1975 on this day in history?
EMac was born.
1975. Come on. Come on. That's way. I was born before that. That was the fall of Saigon. The fall of Saigon.
All right.
What happened in 1933?
Is this baseball related, or are we still
no histories? This is weed related. The patron saint
Randolph Hearst something.
Willie Nelson would actually be. Nelson. So my birthday twin Willie Nelson, his parents dropped off his birth certificate on this day in 1933. He was actually born on April 29th. They went back.
I really thought you were going to say April 20th and make it a whole thing.
I'm very sad because that was my last cool birthday twin. But yes, it is my birthday today. That's why Mama Mac was calling. She wanted to surprise me. Yes, in 1971.
It was the reason I wasn't here for last week's show is that I was celebrating my birthday, which was this past Tuesday on the 25th.
Very nice.
Happy birthday to you, sir.
Yeah, and to you, a little belated. So check that out. Let's hit the like button for my birthday. If I can't play that card,
then hit it again for mine.
Yeah. So there we go. We got 700 people watching, 122 likes. Come on, we need 200 likes. 2 more games to go. No weather concerns here because both of these stadiums have retractable roofs. You've got the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim in Milwaukee taking on the Brewers. Colin Ray on the bump there for Milwaukee. He is pedestrian at best. On the other side, you have Jose Suarez, who is in the funk of all funks right now. He has allowed more earned runs than he has innings pitched. That is not good. Now, typically he is not that bad. Home runs were kind of an issue for him earlier in his career. He sort of solved that, but oh dear God, it has just been awful. When he first came up to the majors, he had allowed 2.6 per 9 innings, but that was just over 83 innings. The next 2 seasons, he bounced back and forth between the Salt Lake Bees and Anaheim, but he kind of got it under control, was allowing 1.1 per 9 for the next 200 innings. He's already given up 7 in 16 innings this season. Now it's not going to happen at this pace, but is he tipping pitches? Is he hiding an injury? I don't know, but this is what is going to make the Milwaukee Brewers one of the best options out there. No Christian Yelich in the lineup. Don't worry about that. He needs a day off. He's okay in lefty situations, but he doesn't have much power anymore. At least he and Cody Bellinger are being above average players after their respective MVP curses. But you've got Mike Brousseau in the leadoff spot, 2,400 on DraftKings. Expect to see him lifted when a righty comes into the game, but you should get 2, if not 3 at bats from him. You got Willie Adames and William Contreras in there. They are phenomenal in against Southpaws. And then you've got Brian Anderson as well. Nobody likes clicking on Brian Anderson's name, but he is batting cleanup and he is third base and outfield eligible over there on DraftKings. Those guys are all solid. The rest of the lineup, replacement level at best, especially looking at you, Luke Voigt. But I think those guys are all in play. And then we get Trout, Ohtani, Renfroe on the other side. So this is looking like a nice offensive spot. We don't get the Mexico City game or the Colorado Coors Field extravaganza on the slate.
Yeah. I'm so happy those two. Are you playing that afternoon slate?
Of course I am, specifically for those games, but that's okay. But what do you got here? And is there any redeeming thought of either pitcher here as an SP2?
No, I'm not going to either one of these guys. No esteem whatsoever for Colin Red. Massive target for Angels bats. They're crashing through the top of my home run model. Mike Trout over a 20 at 22.4. Shohei Ohtani 19.9. Hunter Renfroe, Brandon Drury. Jake Lamb hiding down the bottom of the lineup in the confirmed lineup that just came out. 10.37 in my home run model. You get him for 2,200 at first base on DK, 2,400 on FanDuel. Fire away with the Angels. You also get Luis Renifo, second base and outfield eligible, hitting 3,200, 2,600 on FanDuel, second short and outfield. Gio Urshela is also in the lineup, but they've been kind of flip-flopping those two hitters specifically a lot. In the long term, I like Renifo's bat a lot better than Urshela's. He hit 17 home runs last year, a 166 ISO. Like, it's not great, but when you're looking for a cheap infielder from the bottom of the lineup with 3 position eligibility, 2 position eligibility, like that's the kind of guy that you want. So I like Renifo when he's hiding down here. He hits from both sides of the plate. Kind of interesting. Not a great contact profile, but doesn't, he puts the ball in play a decent amount, gets himself on base. So I like him. On the Brewers side, totally agree with you. Christian Yelich just needs to remember how to hit the ball in the air and he'll be fine. It's been years since he's done it, but the idea is there. He still hits everything really hard, like 50. Well, whatever. He's not in the lineup. Mike Brasso, very cheap, but I think he'll be a little bit more popular. We've got him at 11.6%. I think he's going to be a little bit more than that. And then Adames Contreras, both in the mid-20s on FanDuel, very popular on DK. Brian Anderson, I don't know why people wouldn't like clicking on his name. Nice little 9.7% barrel, 42% hard hit last year. Only 8 home runs in 383 plate appearances and was below average creating runs. So that's probably why. But I think he's a decent hitter, and he's delivered since coming to Milwaukee. He's got 5 home runs on the board at 202 ISO so far this year, and he's barreling the ball 15.4% of the time. So I like that. I'll take some shares of Rowdy Tellez despite the lefty, and I will actually take some shares of Luke Voigt. He is not good. We've discussed this many times. 22 home runs is like his ceiling. He did that in the weird 60-game season in 2020, and then he's only ever gotten back to that point in it was 568 places. Yeah, 568 plate appearances last year with a 176 ISO. The contact profile is still good. Like when he does make contact, the contact is typically very good. 14.7% barrel rate in that sample last year. It just doesn't always translate to home run power. So flawed player. But if he goes off low owned, like he's 10% owned for 2,500, 2,400 on FanDuel at 13% against this pitcher, like you can take a couple shots with Luke Voigt there. Like he's probably a little underrated for that potential opportunity. So I like bats on both sides. I do not like pitching on either side. Jose Suarez is a mess. You mentioned the home run issues that have cropped up this year. 5 home runs allowed in that last start to the Athletics is kind of making his numbers jump all over the place. But yeah, he's been flat bad. 43.1% hard hit total, 13.8% barrel on the year.
All right.
I think he's actually probably hiding or covering an injury, or something is going on there.
Yeah, and quickly to hit the weather for Josh Gilliam, every place in the Midwest and the Atlantic is a rain risk right now. We're 90 minutes away from most of those games in the Midwest getting their first pitch. I expect they're mostly going to play. I'm surprised they have not postponed Washington yet. Looking out my handy dandy window, it's still raining pretty good. They don't play Pittsburgh. I don't believe they play Pittsburgh again this year. But even if they wait, that would look like maybe a 4 or 5 o'clock start if they're going to wait around that long. It's Washington. Who knows what they're going to do, but keep tabs on things.
Yeah, the latest updates I'm seeing are kind of like cleaning up a little bit there. Still sketchy, but getting a little bit better maybe, which means that it's probably more likely now that Washington will scrap the game because they just suck and that's how they do things. But yeah, fun one.
All right, final game for us. And then reminder, we've got NBA Live Before Lock coming on at 12. Terry, we've got Nestor Cortez and his million different arm slots and herky-jerky motions that he's managed to make work with the pitch clock and the more enforced balk rules here. Martin Perez on the other side. Martin Perez is one of those guys I always talk about. I didn't pull the numbers, but I think he's allowed more than 4 runs, probably like 9 times in the last 3 seasons. So he doesn't get blown up. He can give up runs, but he does not give up crooked numbers for the most part because he's pretty good with the ground balls. No, obviously, Giancarlo Stanton, no Aaron Judge. This is just, sorry to your Yankees, this is not a great lineup here. I think Perez now moves into contention as an extreme SP2. I like Nestor Cortez as a potential top pitcher. Clean us up on this game. You got 3 minutes.
I think Perez would be more interesting if he was cheap. He's 8,700, 9,400. I don't see it.
The weather, I'm worried about the weather.
There. Yeah, there's a lot of guys that might come off the board weather-wise, and there's a lot of reason to be concerned about a lot of like Logan Allen, Chris Sale. Like that game has cleaned up a little bit. Seems like it'll play, but if they get a delay, like we talked about at the top of the show, neither one of those guys is coming back into that game. Prized rookie and a dude who's just always hurt, so they're not going to come back out into that game. So question marks abound on starting pitching, but that's not a great value price. But we just did see Nate Eovaldi, like we talked about, just absolutely smoke these guys that are masquerading wearing the Yankees uniforms. You get multi-position eligibility from a couple players, DJ LeMahieu, Oswald Peraza getting a shot in the 2-hole in this spot, 2,700, 2,300 on DK. It's not great. He's a premium prospect, though. They really like his bat. He's very good in the field. He and Anthony Volpe were dueling for who was going to get to the Bronx first. So him and Volpe up top, Rizzo, LeMahieu, Gleyber Torres. That's your Yankee stack, the bottom 4. Actually, Higgy's in the lineup. So I do like Kyle Higashioka as a sneaky catcher play. Fantastic contact profile the last few years. Doesn't translate into a ton of homers, but he should play more than he does. He's a better bat than Jose Trevino. Jose Trevino is a better catcher behind the plate. They're both very, very good defensively, but Trevino's a little bit better, so he gets more starts. But I do really like Higgy's bat. At the same time, Nestor Cortez on the mound, getting some popularity, but totally warranted. He is in line for a very strong start here. Like you mentioned, keeps hitters off balance very, very well. So he's difficult to homer against, difficult to put the ball in play with any hard hit or any exit velocity behind it. So I really like Nestor. At the same time, you can take out shares of very, very low on Rangers bats. Expect him to keep the power down, but Marcus Semien, Nate Lowe, Adolis Garcia, Josh Young, Jonah Heim, Ezekiel Duran is kind of interesting. Robbie Grossman, if he hits second, kind of interesting. So you can take some low on shares of Rangers as a contrarian position against Nestor.
All right.
I left 2 minutes on the board. I thought I was up against it. You said 2 minutes.
Well, we are, because we're answering a super chat here from Jorge Jacome. Right, so he would like your top 3 pitchers and stacks. I put mine in the chat, but Nestor Cortez, Sonny Gray, and Drew Rasmussen are my top 3 pitchers, top 3 stacks: Milwaukee, Toronto, and Tampa Bay.
I will agree with I'll actually agree with all 3 of those stacks. I like all 3 of those spots. My
Baltimore is an
Milwaukee would be my least favorite.
Yeah.
I would not necessarily have Baltimore in that position stack wise. I'll think about my last stack there as I'm talking. Pitcher wise, just looking at my numbers, I like Sonny Gray. I like Kyle Bradish in that spot against those Tigers. I think that's super interesting, and he's cheap, so you can get some value there. And then I really just love Drew Rasmussen because he's not owned nearly as much as they should be against that White Sox lineup. Maybe they get him, but premium option there. And then Nestor's fine. He projects a little bit worse for me just because the Rangers are very good. So he gets a little bit of a ding from that, but I do really like Nestor. And we talked about Chris Bassett is also cheap, but also up against a very good lineup against the Mariners there. So throw a bunch of options into the mix.
All right. Thank you to SoRare for sponsoring the show. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring the show. Get their respective deals in the description below us here on the YouTube landing page. Hit that like button for Terry and I. It was my birthday today. It was his birthday a few days ago. Come on, Let's get up to 200. With that, gamers, stay tuned. Different stream, same channel. NBA Live Before Lock. You got Josh Engelman and Ryan Rinpack coming up next. With that, gamers, good luck.
Vladdy Guerrero Jr. was my home run.